I want you to imagine a scenario for a second. You're sitting down at your kitchen table for dinner with your family.
Okay.
And let's say you're having salmon. Now imagine that the specific fish sitting right there on your plate is actually the direct result of, like, a law that was just passed in Washington, D.C.,
Oh, wow.
combined with the fluctuating price of copper on European trading markets. And, a zoning decision made at a tribal council meeting just down the street from your house.
I mean, it sounds like a geopolitical thriller, honestly, but you're actually just describing a regular Tuesday in Alaska.
Exactly. And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are exploring a concept called Alaska Cultural Standard A7.
Right, A7.
Basically, this standard challenges you, yes, you listening right now, to figure out exactly where your local cultural community fits into this massive overlapping puzzle of regional, state, national, and international systems.
Because it's all connected.
It really is. We're talking politics, we're talking money, and we're talking about how decisions made, like 1,000 miles away, end up literally on your dinner plate.
Yeah, so the big question we are answering in this deep dive is really, how is your local community connected to decisions, institutions, resources, and economies that are operating at much, much larger scales?
Right.
Because once you understand that web, I mean, you really start to see how the world actually works.
And to make sense of where a community fits into the world, I think we first have to understand how a community actually sustains itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to look at the economy.
Yeah.
And just so we are all on the exact same page, when we talk about economic systems, we're talking about the ways people produce, exchange, distribute, use, and care for resources, goods, services, labor, and wealth.
And that concept of caring for resources is so crucial here. In Alaska, economic systems don't fit into this neat, simple split of, traditional versus modern.
That's what people usually think, right?
Exactly. You don't just have people who only hunt and gather on one side, and then people who only work in office buildings on the other.
Right.
Instead, what you see across the state is a highly integrated mixed subsistence cash economy.
Okay, let me make sure I've got this. Is this like a side hustle?
A side hustle.
Yeah, like you have a normal 9-to-5 wage job as a teacher or a mechanic, but you go fishing on the weekends for some extra cash or just to fill your freezer to save on groceries.
Well, I'm going to actually push back on that analogy.
Okay.
Because calling it a side hustle implies something extra, right?
Yeah.
Something you just do in your spare time for fun or a little bonus cash.
Sure.
In rural Alaska, this is a deeply integrated foundational system. It is the economic engine.
Wow.
The cash that people earn from wage employment, whether that's working in school administration or running a small business or commercial fishing, that cash is directly reinvested into household production and subsistence practices.
Oh, I see. Because going out and harvesting wild foods isn't exactly free. I mean, you don't just walk out your back door and grab a moose.
Far from it. You need to buy the boat. You need a reliable snow machine. You need rifles, ammunition, fishing gear, and you absolutely need to buy fuel.
Oh, man, fuel.
Right. And fuel in rural villages can be incredibly expensive. I mean, sometimes triple or quadruple the price you'd pay in a city.
That's insane.
So the cash sector literally feeds the subsistence sector, and the subsistence sector feeds the community.
And when we say it feeds the community, we aren't just talking about a little bit of extra protein here and there.
Not at all.
Our sources point out that rural Alaskans harvest an average of 153 to over 600 pounds of wild food per person every single year.
It's a massive amount of food. In some regions, that wild harvest covers up to 242% of local protein requirements.
242%.
Yeah, and over a third of their total caloric needs. This isn't a hobby. It is literal food security.
Which brings up a really fascinating contrast regarding fisheries. Because commercial industries catch about 97% of the state's fish,
Right.
while subsistence harvesting accounts for just about 2%. When I first saw that, I thought, wait, 2%? That sounds like a rounding error.
Yeah, if you're looking at a global spreadsheet, maybe it looks like a rounding error, but locally, that 2% is everything.
How so?
Well, the commercial catch is mostly exported for global profit, but that 2% subsistence catch stays local. It is the absolute backbone of rural food security and traditional sharing networks.
Oh, so it's shared around.
Exactly.
Oh.
If an elder can't feed anymore, younger hunters provide for them through that 2%. If that 2% is disrupted, the entire community feels it immediately.
Okay, so if that 2% subsistence catch is the literal backbone of a community's survival, what happens when a commercial fishery or, I don't know, a mining company wants access to that exact same river?
That is the million-dollar question.
Who actually has the power to decide who gets what? And that brings us to political systems, which are the ways communities organize authority, make laws, resolve conflicts, and represent their community interests.
And if we really want to understand political systems in Alaska, we have to start by clarifying a very crucial point about sovereignty.
Okay.
Tribal governments and Alaska Native organizations are sovereign political entities.
Let me stop you there just because I want to be crystal clear for the listeners.
Sure.
When you say sovereign, you mean a tribal government isn't just like a cultural club or a charity.
Right.
And it's definitely not just a localized extension of the state of Alaska government. Right?
That is absolutely correct. It is a government-to-government relationship. The United States federal government recognizes tribes as distinct political entities with inherent rights to self-government.
Okay.
But the mechanism of how this actually plays out in Alaska is completely different from the lower 48 states.
Because of the 1971 Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act.
Right.
Right. ANCSA.
ANCSA.
I know this changed everything, but how does it actually work on the ground?
Well, ANCSA completely changed the landscape. Instead of creating a system of traditional reservations like you see in the lower 48, where land is held in trust by the federal government, ANCSA established 12 regional and over 200 village corporations.
That's the corporate land model.
Exactly. It's a corporate land model.
Wait, so instead of living on a reservation, an Alaska Native might be a shareholder in a corporation that owns the land?
Yes. They are literally shareholders, which means they have to navigate corporate board meetings, dividends, and business investments right alongside their traditional hunting rights and tribal government duties.
That is a lot to juggle.
It is. So a local community is navigating an incredibly complex web. They are dealing with their tribal government, their ANCSA Village Corporation, the regional corporation, city and borough institutions, the state of Alaska, and the federal government.
I mean, that sounds like a jurisdictional nightmare. If I'm trying to protect my town's watershed, who am I even talking to?
Exactly. And it leads to this massive tug of war over who controls the resources, particularly between the state and the federal government. It is the defining political tension in Alaska's resource management.
Break that tension down for me, because when I was looking into this, I was genuinely confused.
It is confusing. So on one side, you have the state of Alaska. Under laws stemming from a 1989 case called McDowell decision, the state constitution mandates equal access to fish and wildlife for all Alaskans on state lands.
Regardless of where they live.
Right.
Okay, equal access for everyone. If you're a resident of Alaska, you have the same hunting rights as any other resident. Seems straightforward on paper.
On paper, yeah. But then you have the federal government. Under Title VIII of a federal law called Ana-Ilkade, and reinforced by landmark legal battles like the 1995 Katie John case, the federal government mandates a rural subsistence priority on federal public lands and navigable waters.
A rural priority.
Yes. This means if resources are scarce, rural residents who depend on subsistence absolutely get priority over commercial or sport users.
Hold on. You're saying the state constitution guarantees equal access for everyone, but the federal law says rural locals get priority.
You've got it.
If I'm standing in a boat on a river throwing a net whose law actually applies to my fishing net.
Honestly, it depends on exactly where your boat is floating or who manages the land touching the water.
You're kidding.
No, it's like playing a game of basketball where the referees are using strict NBA rules on one half of the court, but street ball rules on the other half.
What a mess.
You are navigating overlapping jurisdictions, different legal definitions of your own rights, and completely competing management priorities, all while just trying to harvest that 2% of the fish to feed your family.
Man, to really make sense of this, to understand the mechanics of how these scales interact, I think we need to trace a single decision.
Good idea.
Let's trace something from the international level all the way down to a local backyard. Let's look at the Ambler Access Road.
Oh, this is a perfect case study. The Ambler Access Road is a proposed 211-mile private industrial road in northern Alaska.
Let's follow the chain reaction here, starting at the very top,
Right.
international. Why even build a road out in the middle of nowhere?
Right.
Well, because international markets have a massive surging demand for copper, zinc, and gold. And those minerals are sitting undeveloped in the Ambler mining district. So a spike in copper prices in London provides the financial incentive to dig.
Which triggers the national scale. Because to get to those minerals, the proposed route has to cross federal lands.
Uh-huh.
including a 26-mile segment right through the gates of the Arctic National Park and Preserve. So suddenly, federal agencies in Washington, D.C. are pulled in. They have to conduct massive environmental impact statements and issue permits based on national conservation laws.
Okay, so the feds are involved. Where does the state scale come in?
Well, the state of Alaska steps in with the funding mechanism. An entity called the Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority, or ADEA, proposed providing the funding and managing the project.
Right.
From the state's perspective, this is a major economic driver. It's a way to create jobs, secure raw materials, and generate state revenue.
But then we crash right into the local scale.
We do.
And this is where the abstract ideas of global copper markets and state revenue meet physical reality. The proposed road would cross 11 major rivers and over 3,000 streams.
And local communities are the ones who actually carry the physical risks of that.
Right. Let's talk about the actual mechanism of that risk.
Yeah.
If a 200-mile industrial road is built, it potentially redirects the migration routes of the caribou herds.
Exactly.
And if a caribou herd is displaced by 50 miles, a local hunter now has to travel 100 extra miles round trip just to find food.
And remember our conversation about the mixed economy.
Oh, the fuel.
Yes. That hunter is traveling on a snow machine. Pulling a heavy sled for an extra 100 miles requires gallons and gallons of extra gas. At $10 or $15 a gallon in a remote village, that suddenly breaks the household budget.
Wow.
They have less cash for winter heating fuel or fixing their roof.
That is how a global copper price lands directly on a family's dinner plate. And we need to be very clear here presenting this impartially because this is a big debate.
Excellent.
There are major economic arguments for this development, bringing cash into that mixed economy, creating infrastructure, generating local wage jobs, and there are massive ecological and cultural trade-offs. The potential harm to the water quality in those 3,000 streams, and the subsistence resources that sustain those same communities.
Right.
The point here isn't to tell you which side is right. It's to show you the chain reaction.
It's a cascading effect. The global impacts the local every time.
But, I don't want to paint a picture where communities are just waiting around for decisions to fall on their heads.
Good, because they aren't.
Are rural or indigenous communities just completely passive in this? Or are they just isolated and dependent on these larger institutions?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
That is a fundamental misconception. Communities are not passive victims. They are active change makers who influence larger systems just as much as they are affected by them.
Give me an example.
Let's talk about salmon co-management.
Yes. Let's look at the Kuskokwim River Intertribal Fish Commission. When salmon runs started collapsing on the Kuskokwim, you had this exact tension we've been talking about, right?
Exactly. State biologists are looking at their spreadsheets, federal managers are looking at their rule books, and local subsistence fishers are staring at empty nets.
So what do?
The local communities forced a solution called co-management. Instead of the government just handing down a ruling from above, tribal elders and active subsistence fishers sit down at the exact same table with state and federal biologists to co-produce the management plan.
But how does that work in practice? Are they just taking the biologists' data and saying, yeah, we agree?
No, they are merging two completely different systems of knowledge. They combine Western science things like sonar fish counts and genetic sampling with traditional ecological knowledge, or tech.
Okay, explain tech for me, because a lot of people might hear traditional knowledge and mistake it for, I don't know, like folklore or myth.
Oh, it is absolutely not folklore. Think of tech as a 500-year unbroken database of survival data.
Oh, I like that.
A Western biologist might have 10 years of really great sonar data showing how many fish swam past a specific point. But a local elder has multi-generational, continuous empirical observations.
Right. They live there.
Exactly. They know exactly how the ice thickness has changed over 50 years. They know how shifts in wind patterns affect water temperature and how that temperature alters fish spawning behavior.
So the community is using its own rigorous local expertise to literally write the rules alongside the federal and state governments.
Precisely. It's local action dictating larger policy.
Let's give a few more concrete examples of that, moving up the scales.
Yeah.
How does a local community directly change state law?
Look at the Gwich'in resource managers at a place called Nanli. They wanted to protect their traditional waters from potential industrial development. So they partnered with biologists, went out on the water, and collected genetic tissue samples from chum salmon themselves.
They gathered the hard biological data.
Yes, and they used that genetic data to officially nominate those traditional places to the state of Alaska's Anadromous Waters catalog.
Wow.
By getting their local knowledge officially recognized by the state, They triggered a mechanism that legally protected that habitat.
Okay, what about local influencing national or even global systems? What happens when a community faces an issue that's bigger than state zoning laws, like climate change?
The situations in coastal communities like Shishmaref and Kivalina are prime examples. These communities are facing catastrophic challenges. Coastal erosion is eating away their shorelines, and the permafrost beneath their homes and infrastructure is thawing.
But they aren't just passively watching the ice melt.
No, they are actively collaborating with civil engineers and federal agencies to define the incredibly complex problems of community relocation. They are forcing national engineering firms and federal funding agencies to rethink their cost-benefit analysis.
Because usually agencies just look at the money.
Right, the agencies might just look at the raw financial cost of moving a water treatment plant. But the community demands that they also factor in the necessity of preserving their cultural ties to their ancestral subsistence grounds. They are forcing national models to adapt to Arctic realities.
And we could take that local influence all the way to the international scale. We have to talk about the LEO network, the Local Environmental Observer Network. How does a smartphone picture from rural Alaska change global science?
It's a brilliant mechanism, really. The Arctic is warming 2 to 3 times faster than the rest of the globe. International climate scientists desperately need real-time data to adjust their models.
Sure.
Through the LEO network, a local community member who is out hunting or berry picking can just snap a photo of a strange invasive insect, or a sudden permafrost sinkhole, or a shift in sea ice behavior. They upload that observation, and it feeds directly into international One Health networks.
So a local hunter's observation instantly becomes a data point used by global scientists.
Yes. And beyond science, Alaska Native communities actively engage with international political systems, too. They use frameworks like the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, or UNDRHE.
Oh, right.
They take their local priorities and advocate for their sovereign rights on a global stage, directly influencing international human rights dialogue.
It really is a vast interconnected web.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about mixed economies where your day job pays for the gas in your snow machine so you can hunt. We've untangled the web of tribal corporations, state equal access laws, and federal subsistence priorities.
We've covered a lot.
We traced a mining road from a spike in global copper prices right down to the extra gas money a local hunter has to spend. And we watched local fishers use a 500-year database of knowledge to write policy with federal biologists.
It really proves that the local and the global are never truly separate.
So for you, listening to this Deep Docs right now,
Yeah.
what is the point of all this?
Yeah.
Why does Alaska Cultural Standard A7 actually matter?
Well-
Because understanding where your community fits within these larger political and economic systems isn't just an academic exercise. It isn't just about passing the civics test.
Exactly. It is the toolkit you need to participate effectively. Understanding these scales, knowing exactly who has the legal authority, who holds the funding, and who carries the risk is how you protect your community's interests.
Right.
It's how you evaluate the trade-offs of a new policy, and ultimately, how you make informed decisions about your own future. You cannot change a system if you don't know how the gears connect.
And your local knowledge is the most important gear in that machine.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think about the seasonal cycles, the weather patterns, and the resources right outside your front door. If you were seated at a table with federal lawmakers and international economists tomorrow, what unique, intimate knowledge about your local ecosystem do you possess that they completely lack? How might your specific local perspective completely rewrite a global policy?
Because at the end of the day, the global economy and national laws might try to set the menu, but it is your local knowledge, your community's resilience, and your voice that will ultimately determine what actually makes it onto your dinner plate.